In a bold social experiment, NBA superstar LeBron James disguised himself as a homeless man to see how a prestigious Beverly Hills bank treats someone who appears destitute. But before we reveal the shocking twist, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a story like this. And hey, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing from our viewers around the globe. The afternoon sun cast a golden glow over the palm-lined avenues of Beverly Hills, illuminating its reputation for glitz and glamour. In this city of wealth and excess, Bentleys and Lamborghinis dotted the pristine streets. Among them, a man in tattered clothing shuffled along the sidewalk, drawing curious glances from passers-by. His shoes were scuffed, his pants frayed, and his oversized shirt hung loosely on his lean frame. Despite his disheveled appearance, he moved with a quiet confidence, as though the opinions of others held no power over him. LeBron James, one of the most famous athletes in the world, had carefully curated his look to ensure he blended in, though not with Beverly Hills elite. Today, he wanted to see life through the eyes of those society often overlooked. His disguise was meticulous. A patchy beard, a faded baseball cap pulled low over his forehead, and clothing that looked like it had seen far better days. Yet, his greatest tool was his ability to suppress the commanding aura that usually accompanied him. To the world, he was just another face in the crowd. Ahead, the gleaming facade of First Summit Bank came into view, its polished glass doors reflecting the brilliance of the sun. LeBron hesitated for a brief moment before stepping inside, his heart pounding with anticipation. The opulent interior was almost overwhelming. Polished marble floors, vaulted ceilings adorned with intricate designs, and customers lounging in plush leather chairs while sipping complimentary coffee. Bankers, dressed to the nines, attended to their wealthy clientele with practiced ease. The moment LeBron entered, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations paused, eyes flicked in his direction, and a few patrons exchanged hushed whispers. He felt the weight of their judgment, the unspoken assumptions about his worth, or perceived lack thereof. Undeterred, he made his way to the reception desk. Behind the counter stood a middle-aged woman with perfectly coiffed hair and a frosty demeanor. Her name tag read Marilyn, and her eyes betrayed a flicker of disdain as they swept over his appearance. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone flat and devoid of warmth. "Yes," LeBron replied calmly, his voice steady despite the scrutiny surrounding him. "I'd like to open a basic checking account." Marilyn blinked, momentarily taken aback. She quickly recovered, forcing a practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Our minimum deposit for opening an account is $500, she said, enunciating each word as if speaking to a child. "Do you have the necessary funds with you today?" LeBron reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled $20 bill. "I have this," he said simply. For a fleeting moment, Marilyn's polished facade cracked, revealing a flicker of disdain. She let out a small, condescending laugh before regaining her composure. "I'm afraid that won't be enough," she said curtly. "Perhaps you should try a different institution, one more suited to your circumstances." The rejection stung, not because of the words themselves, but because of how effortlessly they were delivered. LeBron glanced around the room, noting the smirks and hushed comments from staff and patrons alike. A pang of vulnerability hit him, a rare and sobering insight into the struggles faced by those without his usual privileges. As Marilyn gestured for a security guard, LeBron noticed a young woman sitting at a nearby desk. She looked to be in her mid-20s, and unlike the others, her expression wasn't one of disdain. Instead, her eyes held a mix of curiosity and discomfort, as though she were wrestling with her conscience. LeBron made a mental note of her face, but his thoughts were interrupted by the guard's firm voice. "Sir, if you don't have the required funds, I'm going to have to ask you to leave," the guard said, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. LeBron nodded silently, his mind racing. He had come here to test the boundaries of perception and humanity, and the results were already giving him more to think about than he had anticipated. And while the results were predictable, they were no less disheartening. As LeBron James turned to leave, he cast one last glance at the young woman. For a brief moment, their eyes met, and in that fleeting exchange, he saw something different, something he couldn't quite place. Outside, the sun still blazed, but LeBron's thoughts were stormy. The world he had worked so hard to dominate felt far removed from the harsh realities faced by those without power or privilege. His experiment had just begun, yet it was already revealing more than he had anticipated. Inside the opulent First Summit Bank, the atmosphere buzzed with quiet arrogance. Staff moved with the practiced efficiency of people accustomed to catering exclusively to the elite. Their tailored suits and designer shoes were extensions of the bank's brand, a symbol of prestige and wealth. Marilyn, the receptionist, had already dismissed LeBron once, but he lingered near the desk, undeterred, clutching his crumpled 20 bill. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward again. "I'd like to open a basic checking account," he repeated, his voice calm but firm. LeBron's unassuming demeanor and shabby appearance felt starkly out of place against the backdrop of wealth and privilege. Marilyn looked up from her computer, her manicured nails clicking impatiently on the counter. She sighed audibly. "As I mentioned before," she said, her tone clipped, "our minimum deposit is $500. We don't offer services below that amount." Her words dripped with subtle derision, the kind reserved for those deemed unworthy of her time. LeBron reached into his pocket, smoothing out the crumpled $20 bill and placing it on the counter. The faded currency stood in stark contrast to the gleaming marble beneath it. "This is all I have for now," he said evenly, meeting her gaze without flinching. "But it's enough to get started, isn't it?" Marilyn's lips curled into a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Sir, we have policies," she said, her voice laced with condescension. "Perhaps you'd be better off at a credit union or a community bank. First Summit caters to a different clientele." Around the room, heads subtly turned toward LeBron. A few patrons exchanged amused glances, their whispers just loud enough to reach his ears. "The audacity," one muttered, while another chuckled softly. Despite the humiliation, LeBron remained calm. Scanning the room, his eyes briefly locked on the young trainee he had noticed earlier. She sat a few desks away, her head bent over paperwork, but her frequent glances toward the reception desk didn't escape his notice. Unlike the others, her expression wasn't smug or dismissive. If anything, she looked uneasy. "Policies aside," LeBron said, turning back to Marilyn, "isn't banking about helping people manage their money, no matter how much or how little they have?" Marilyn scoffed, leaning in closer to lower her voice. "This is Beverly Hills, sir," she said coldly. "We are not a charity." She pressed a button on her desk, summoning a security guard. The guard approached swiftly, his posture firm but not aggressive. "Sir," he began, his tone professional, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave if you're not conducting business that meets the bank's policies." LeBron hesitated, tightening his grip on the $20 bill. He hadn't come here to merely test the bank's policies. He wanted to test their humanity, but the walls of privilege were proving harder to breach than he'd anticipated. Reluctantly, he nodded and stepped away from the counter. Still, he threw one last glance toward the trainee. The young woman, whose name tag read Kara, appeared to wrestle with an internal conflict. Her colleagues carried on with their tasks, oblivious to the silent struggle on her face. As LeBron turned to leave, Clara's eyes met his. In her gaze, he saw something unexpected. An apology, perhaps, or a flicker of defiance. Outside, the sun was blinding, but LeBron barely noticed. His mind raced, replaying the interaction over and over. The staff had treated him exactly as he had anticipated, with scorn and dismissal. But Clara was different. She hadn't spoken a word, yet her expression conveyed more empathy than anyone else in the building. Seated on a bench near the bank's entrance, LeBron watched as customers came and went, their polished appearances a sharp contrast to his disheveled disguise. LeBron James sat on the park bench outside the bank, his thoughts circling back to Clara. He wondered what kind of person she was and whether she might be bold enough to challenge the rigid culture of the institution she worked for. Inside the bank, Clara sat at her desk, her hands trembling slightly as she filed paperwork. She couldn't shake the image of the man at the counter. He had seemed so calm, so dignified, even in the face of rejection. While Marilyn and the others had laughed him off, Clara couldn't help but feel they had made a terrible mistake. For the rest of the day, her mind was plagued with questions. Why did he want an account here? What had brought him to a place where appearances mattered more than people? And most importantly, why had she done nothing to help? As the clock struck 5 and the bank prepared to close, Clara made a decision. Tomorrow she would find a way to help that man, even if it meant risking her job. The next morning, LeBron returned to the park bench outside the bank, sitting quietly as he observed the bustling activity around him. He had no immediate plans to re-enter the building. Yesterday's humiliation was still fresh in his mind, but his curiosity about Clara kept him nearby. Something about her brief glances and the discomfort etched on her face had left an impression. Unlike her colleagues, she had shown traces of humanity, and LeBron couldn't help but wonder if she might be the anomaly he was searching for. Inside the bank, Clara was restless. The day had barely begun, yet the tension from yesterday lingered. As she organized files at her desk, she overheard Marilyn recounting the previous day's events to another staff member. "Can you believe that guy?" Marilyn sneered, shaking her head. "He really thought he could just walk in here and open an account with $20. The nerve." Her colleague laughed, adding, "I'm surprised he didn't try to pay with pocket lint." Clara bit her lip, forcing herself to stay silent. Their ridicule grated on her, not just because it was cruel, but because it clashed with the values she had been taught growing up. She had always believed in treating everyone with dignity, regardless of their circumstances. Yesterday's encounter had only reinforced that belief, but she had done nothing to act on it. The morning passed slowly, the usual parade of wealthy clients streaming through the bank. Clara struggled to focus on her tasks, her thoughts repeatedly drifting to the man in ragged clothes. She couldn't ignore the nagging sense of guilt that weighed on her. It wasn't just his treatment that bothered her, it was her own inaction. During her lunch break, Clara stepped outside to clear her head. The fresh air was a welcome relief from the stifling atmosphere of the bank. She wandered toward the park, her gaze scanning the area almost unconsciously. When her eyes landed on the same disheveled figure from the day before, her heart skipped a beat. LeBron was seated on the bench, his posture relaxed, but his eyes alert as he watched the world go by on. Clara hesitated, unsure whether she should approach him. She glanced back at the bank, the imposing building, a stark reminder of the rules she was supposed to follow. But something inside of her urged her forward. Taking a deep breath, she walked toward the bench, her footsteps hesitant but deliberate. "Excuse me," she said softly, stopping a few feet away. LeBron looked up, his expression neutral but curious. Clara fidgeted with the edge of her blazer, her nerves getting the better of her. I wanted to apologize for what happened yesterday," she said finally. "It wasn't right the way you were treated." LeBron studied her for a moment, his sharp eyes taking in her sincerity. "You work there, don't you?" he asked, nodding toward the bank. "Yes," Clara admitted, her cheeks flushing. "I'm just a trainee, though. I don't have much say in how things are run." LeBron's lips curved into a faint smile. "But you came out here anyway," he said. "That says something." Clara shifted uncomfortably under his gaze, unsure how to respond. "I guess I just wanted to tell you that not everyone there thinks the way they do," she said finally. "I don't know if it matters, but I think everyone deserves a chance, no matter what their situation looks like." "It matters," LeBron said quietly, his tone thoughtful. He gestured to the empty spot on the bench beside him. "Why don't you sit down for a minute?" Clara hesitated, but eventually took a seat. Her nerves began to ease as they sat side by side in silence for a moment, the noise of the city fading into the background. Silence hung between them for a moment before LeBron James spoke again. "Why do you work there?" he asked, his voice casual. Clara blinked, surprised by the question. "I've always wanted to work in finance," she explained. "I thought it would be a way to help people, to make a difference, but it's not exactly what I expected." LeBron chuckled softly. "No, it rarely is," he said. Clara glanced at him, her curiosity growing. "If you don't mind me asking," she said tentatively, "why did you come to our bank? There are plenty of places where you might have been treated better." LeBron leaned back, his expression unreadable. "Sometimes the best way to see people's true colors is to strip away the expectations," he said cryptically. Clara frowned, confused by his words, but before she could press further, he stood up. "Thank you," he said, his tone warm, "for seeing me." Clara spent the night grappling with her decision. Her mind raced with the potential consequences of going against the bank's policies. Losing her job was a real possibility, but she couldn't shake the image of LeBron's calm yet vulnerable demeanor. Something told her he wasn't who he seemed, and she resolved to act on her instincts. The following morning, Clara arrived at the bank with a renewed sense of purpose. She kept an eye on the front entrance, hoping he would return. Her pulse quickened when she spotted him near the park bench across the street, seated with the same quiet composure as before. During her lunch break, Clara grabbed her bag and hurried outside, her heart pounding as she crossed the street. LeBron looked up as she approached, his piercing eyes meeting hers. "Back for round two?" he asked, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. Clara hesitated, then sat down beside him. "I wanted to apologize again for what happened," she began. "It wasn't fair, and I don't think you deserve to be treated like that." LeBron tilted his head, studying her carefully. "Most people wouldn't give it a second thought," he said. "Why do you, oh?" Clara bit her lip, choosing her words carefully. "I joined the bank to help people," she explained, "but lately it feels like I'm just helping the people who already have everything. Yesterday reminded me why I wanted to be here in the first place." LeBron nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. "So what do you plan to do about it?" Clara took a deep breath. "I want to help you open an account," she said. "It might not be much, but it's a start." Back inside the bank, Clara approached her desk with a sense of determination. She logged into the system, glancing around nervously to ensure her actions wouldn't draw attention. LeBron followed her inside, his demeanor quiet but observant. The other staff members barely acknowledged him, dismissing him as irrelevant. "Okay," Clara said, her voice low as she explained the process. "I can open a basic checking account for you. Normally, we require a minimum deposit of $500, but I can waive that for now using my employee privileges." LeBron raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "And you're willing to risk this for someone like me?" Clara nodded. "Yes," she said firmly. "Everyone deserves a chance. Besides, I don't think you're just someone like me. There's something different about you." He chuckled softly, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of surprise. "You don't even know me, he said. "No, I don't," Clara admitted, "but I can tell you're not what you seem." As Clara navigated the system, Marilyn's voice cut through the air. "Clara, who's that at your desk?" she called sharply. Clara froze, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Just helping a new client," she replied, forcing her voice to remain steady. Marilyn's eyes narrowed as she approached. "A new client?" she repeated, her gaze landing on LeBron. "Haven't we already dealt with him?" "I'm handling it," Clara said firmly, meeting Marilyn's stare. Marilyn hesitated, clearly suspicious, but eventually shrugged and walked away. Clara exhaled, relieved but still on edge. She quickly completed the process, handing LeBron a receipt for his new account. "There," she said, her voice triumphant, "you're officially a client." LeBron looked at the receipt in his hand, then back at Clara. "You didn't have to do this," he said quietly, "but you did." "It's the right thing to do," Clara replied simply. For a moment, LeBron said nothing, his expression unreadable. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, placing it on the desk. "Thank you, Clara," he said, standing to leave. "I'll see you again soon." Before Clara could respond, he walked out of the bank, leaving her staring after him. She unfolded the paper, her brow furrowing as she read the neatly written words. "Your actions today won't be forgotten." Clara reread the words on the folded piece of paper before slipping it into her pocket. LeBron James's cryptic message lingered in her mind as the weight of her actions settled over her. The risk she had taken felt monumental, but the look in his eyes as he left reassured her she had made the right choice. Unknown to Clara, her small act of defiance had set something extraordinary in motion. LeBron's quiet departure wasn't the end of their story, it was just the beginning. The following morning, Clara arrived at the bank with a lingering sense of unease. Yesterday's bold decision still weighed heavily on her mind. While no one had openly confronted her yet, she knew it was only a matter of time before someone noticed the irregularities in the system. As a trainee, she was painfully aware of how precarious her position was. And then there were his parting words. "Your actions today won't be forgotten." What did he mean? Was it a simple thank you, or was there more to it? Clara felt certain she hadn't seen the last of him. That afternoon, Clara was in the middle of assisting a wealthy client when the bank's doors swung open. LeBron walked in. This time, there was something different about him. Though he still wore his ragged clothes, he carried himself with a quiet confidence that seemed almost at odds with his appearance. Clara's heart skipped a beat when their eyes met, but she quickly masked her reaction. Marilyn, however, wasn't so restrained. The receptionist straightened up immediately, her face tightening with irritation. "Sir, we've already explained," Marilyn began, But LeBron interrupted her, holding up a hand. "I'm not here to make trouble," he said calmly. "I'm here to make a deposit." Marilyn blinked, momentarily stunned. Clara, watching from her desk, felt a flicker of satisfaction. LeBron stepped up to the counter and pulled a neatly folded stack of bills from his pocket, sliding it across without a word. Marilyn, still flustered, began counting the money. $200, she muttered begrudgingly. She glanced toward Clara's desk, remembering that Clara had handled his account the day before. "It seems your account is already set up, sir. I'll process this deposit." "Thank you," LeBron replied with a faint smile, his tone polite but firm. As Marilyn handled the transaction, LeBron turned and walked toward Clara's desk. Her pulse quickened as he approached. "You didn't expect me to come back so soon, did you?" he asked, his voice low and easy. Clara shook her head, unable to hide her surprise. "I wasn't sure I'd see you again," she admitted. LeBron took a seat across from her desk, leaning forward slightly. "I meant what I said yesterday," he told her. "Your kindness didn't go unnoticed. Most people wouldn't have done what you did." Clara flushed slightly, unsure how to respond. "I just did what I thought was right," she said. "And that's exactly why it matters," LeBron replied. "You took a risk. You didn't know who I was or what I could do, but you acted on principle. That's rare." Clara hesitated, her curiosity finally getting the better of her. "Who are you, really?" she asked tentatively. LeBron's expression shifted, his eyes glinting with quiet amusement. "Let's just say I'm someone who believes in testing the system," he said cryptically. Before Clara could press further, he stood up. "You've already done more for me than most people would," he continued. "But if you're willing to take another chance, I'd like to ask for your help again." Clara frowned, intrigued but cautious. "What kind of help?" LeBron leaned in slightly, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "Meet me at the park after your shift," he said. "There's something I'd like to show you." The rest of Clara's day passed in a blur. She found it difficult to concentrate, her thoughts consumed by LeBron's unexpected return and his cryptic request. What did he want to show her? Why had he chosen her of all people? As the clock neared 5, Clara debated whether she should go. Meeting him outside of work felt risky, but her curiosity was too strong to ignore. By the time her shift ended, she had made up her mind. She left the bank and walked toward the park, the evening sun casting long shadows across the street. LeBron was waiting for her, seated on the same bench where they had spoken before. This time he greeted her with a smile that carried the weight of unspoken plans. "Thanks for coming," he said, standing as she approached. "I'm not sure I should be here," Clara admitted, glancing around nervously. "You're not doing anything wrong," LeBron James assured him. "I just want to give you a glimpse of what happens when people like you make bold choices." Clara raised an eyebrow, skeptical but intrigued. "What does that mean?" LeBron gestured for her to follow him. "Walk with me," he said. "It's time you saw the bigger picture." As they strolled through the park, Clara couldn't help but feel that whatever came next would change everything she thought she knew. Not just about him, but about herself. The park was quiet, with only the soft rustle of leaves and the occasional chirp of a bird filling the silence between them. Clara's curiosity simmered beneath the surface, but she held her questions, waiting for him to speak. LeBron seemed deep in thought, his usual air of mystery now tinged with a sense of purpose. Finally, he broke the silence. "Clara, have you ever wondered why people are so quick to judge others based on appearances?" he asked, glancing at her. She nodded, thinking back to the sneers and whispers she'd witnessed at the bank. "All the time," she admitted. "It's something I've never been able to ignore, but I don't know how to change it." LeBron stopped walking and turned to face her. "Sometimes the only way to change a system is to challenge it directly," he said. "That's why I went to your bank. I wanted to see how people react when they think someone has nothing to offer." Clara frowned, her confusion deepening. "You're testing the system?" she asked, trying to piece together his motives. LeBron smiled faintly. "In a way," he said. "I've spent most of my life building systems, ones that shape industries, economies, even how people think about the future. But the problem with systems is that they often forget the people they're meant to serve." Clara was struck by the weight of his words. "So what are you trying to prove?" "I'm not here to prove anything," LeBron said. "I'm here to find people who still believe in doing the right thing, even when it's not easy." They continued walking until they reached a sleek black car parked discreetly near the edge of the park. LeBron gestured toward it. "I want to show you something," he said, opening the passenger door for her. Clara hesitated, glancing back toward the bank in the distance. Her instincts told her to be cautious, but her curiosity won out. She climbed into the car, her heart pounding as LeBron slid into the driver's seat. The ride was silent at first, the city's glittering lights streaking past the windows. LeBron seemed focused, his hands steady on the wheel. Finally, he broke the silence. "I've been in disguise for weeks," he revealed, testing banks, businesses, and other institutions. "I wanted to see how they treated people who didn't fit the mold of wealth or success." Clara's eyes widened. "That's ambitious," she said, struggling to process the scope of his experiment. "It's necessary," LeBron said. "Too often, these places focus on profit and appearances rather than people. But every once in a while, I meet someone like you, someone who sees beyond the surface." His words left Clara speechless. Before she could respond, the car pulled into an underground garage. LeBron parked and led her into a nondescript elevator. As the doors slid shut, Clara's nerves heightened. When the elevator doors opened, they revealed a stunning, state-of-the-art office space. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, while sleek desks and monitors lined the room. Clara stepped out cautiously, her eyes darting around the space. "Where are we?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is one of my workspaces," LeBron replied casually. "A place where I plan ideas, build projects, and, most importantly, gather people I trust." Clara turned to face him, her confusion giving way to awe. "Why are you showing me this?" she asked. LeBron's expression softened. "Because I think you're one of those people," he said simply. "You didn't know who I was, yet you chose to do the right thing. That's rare, Clara, and I don't believe in letting rare qualities go to waste." Clara felt her cheeks flush. "I don't understand," she said. "What do you want from me?" "I want to offer you a job," LeBron said, his tone matter-of-fact. "Something far more meaningful than what you're doing now. I'm building a team of people who value integrity, innovation, and humanity. People like you." The weight of his words settled over her. Clara's mind raced with questions, but one thought stood out above the rest. This could be the opportunity of a lifetime. "What kind of job are we talking about?" she asked cautiously. LeBron smiled. "One where you'll help change how institutions see and treat people. One where you'll make a real difference. You'll learn, grow, and contribute to something bigger than yourself," LeBron James said. "But it won't be easy. It requires courage, hard work, and a willingness to take risks." Clara hesitated, the magnitude of his offer sinking in. She thought of her life at the bank, how stifling and morally conflicted it often felt. This was her chance to break free and do something meaningful. Finally, she met his gaze and said, "I'm in." LeBron's smile widened, and he extended his hand. "Welcome to the team." As Clara shook his hand, she felt a surge of excitement and apprehension. She had no idea what lay ahead, but for the first time in a long while, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. The next morning, Clara woke up with a sense of anticipation she hadn't felt in years. The weight of her decision lingered, but it was buoyed by a newfound sense of purpose. As she prepared for her day at the bank, she couldn't help but wonder what LeBron's next steps would be and how she fit into them. At the bank, it was business as usual. The same parade of wealthy clients flowed through the gleaming doors, greeted with plastic smiles and polished professionalism. Claire, however, found it difficult to concentrate. Her thoughts kept drifting back to LeBron and the enigmatic opportunity he had offered. She was eager to learn more, but had no idea when or how he would contact her again. By mid-afternoon, Clara had almost convinced herself that LeBron's visit had been a surreal dream. But as if on cue, the bank's glass doors swung open and LeBron walked in. This time, his appearance was slightly more polished, still understated, but enough to blend into the affluent surroundings. All eyes turned toward him, and a hushed murmur rippled through the lobby. Clara felt her heart leap as he made his way toward her desk. "Good afternoon, Clara," LeBron said with a warm smile as he took a seat across from her. Clara blinked, momentarily taken aback by the casual familiarity in his tone. "Good afternoon," she managed to reply. "I'd like to make another deposit," LeBron said, pulling a crisp stack of bills from his jacket pocket. something a bit more substantial this time. The murmur in the lobby grew louder. Marilyn, watching from her desk, frowned suspiciously. Clara quickly processed the deposit, her fingers trembling slightly as she entered the amount into the system. $10,000, she whispered, her eyes widening. LeBron nodded, his expression calm. Consider it a gesture of trust, he said. Clara handed him the receipt, her mind racing. What was he doing? The sudden deposit was sure to attract attention, and she wasn't sure how to explain it if anyone questioned her. As if on cue, Mr. Reynolds emerged from his office, his sharp eyes scanning the room. His gaze landed on LeBron, and his expression shifted to one of confusion and suspicion. He walked over to Clara's desk, his tone brisk. "Is there a problem here?" Reynolds asked, glancing between Clara and LeBron. "No problem at all," LeBron said smoothly. "Just conducting some business." Reynolds raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "And you are?" LeBron extended his hand. "A new client," he said with a hint of amusement. "One who appreciates the excellent service your trainee has provided." Reynolds hesitated, then reluctantly shook LeBron's hand. "Well, we're glad to have you," he said, his tone less than genuine. "If there's anything I can do to assist, please let me know." LeBron smiled. "Thank you, but Clara has been more than helpful." Reynolds lingered for a moment, clearly unsure of what to make of the situation, before returning to his office. LeBron leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "I needed to make a statement," he said quietly to Clara. "Now everyone's paying attention." As soon as LeBron left, Clara was summoned to Reynolds' office. She braced herself for the inevitable questions, her pulse quickening as she stepped inside. Reynolds was seated behind his desk, his expression unreadable. "Close the door," he said curtly. Clara obeyed, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "Who is that man?" Reynolds asked, his tone sharp. "He's a new client," Clara said carefully. "He came in last week and wanted to open an account. I helped him." Reynolds narrowed his eyes. "And why wasn't I informed of this?" Clara hesitated. "It was a small account at first," she explained. "I didn't think it needed to be escalated." Reynolds leaned back in his chair, studying her. "I don't like surprises, Clara. If this client turns out to be problematic, it will reflect poorly on you." Clara met his gaze, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. "I understand, sir, but I don't think he's problematic. He seems different." Reynolds arched an eyebrow. "Different how?" Clara chose her words carefully. "He values the kind of service we pride ourselves on," she said, "and he's willing to invest in our institution." Reynolds leaned forward, his fingers steepled. "For your sake, I hope you're right," he said, his tone laced with warning. "Because if this blows up, it's on you." Clara nodded, her pulse still racing as she left his office. She knew she had taken a risk, but deep down she felt it was worth it. As she returned to her desk, she glanced at the receipt LeBron had left behind, her resolve strengthening. Whatever came next, she was ready. Clara looked around the room, her colleagues' faces a mixture of shock, envy, and curiosity. Her gaze settled on LeBron James, who stood confidently before her, his presence commanding the attention of everyone in the bank. She took a deep breath, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside her. "Yes," she said firmly. LeBron's smile widened. "Welcome to the team," he said, extending his hand. As she shook his hand, Clara felt a surge of emotion, excitement, disbelief, and a newfound sense of purpose. The weight of her decision melted away, replaced by the exhilarating realization that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't have imagined. The day passed in a blur. The atmosphere in the bank was charged with whispers and speculation about what had just transpired. Clara barely noticed, her mind spinning with possibilities. By the time the bank closed, Clara found herself seated across from LeBron in a sleek, private conference room located in a nearby high-rise. The setting was far removed from the stifling familiarity of the bank, modern, open, and teeming with energy. LeBron leaned back in his chair, his eyes sharp yet approachable. "You took a risk last week," he began. "Not just in helping me, but in standing up for what you believed was right. That's rare." Clara nodded, still trying to process everything. I couldn't stand by and do nothing. It felt wrong." "And that's exactly why you're here," LeBron said. "The work I do isn't just about building businesses or making money. It's about changing the way people think, challenging systems that have been in place for too long. People like you are essential to that mission." Clara hesitated, her curiosity getting the better of her. But why me? I'm just a trainee. I don't have the experience or credentials for something like this. LeBron smiled. Experience can be gained. Credentials can be earned. What can't be taught is integrity, empathy, and courage. And you've already shown you have all three. I've spent weeks testing institutions like your bank, and you stood out. He leaned forward, his tone serious. The team I'm building isn't just about fixing what's broken. It's about creating something better. I need people who see the world differently, who are willing to challenge the status quo. Are you ready to be one of them? Clara swallowed hard, the weight of his words settling over her. This wasn't just a job offer, it was a calling, a chance to be part of something larger than herself, to leave behind the constraints of her old life and step into the unknown. I'm ready, she said, her voice steady. LeBron nodded, satisfied. Good, then let's get started. Over the following weeks, Clara's world transformed. She left the bank behind, stepping into a role that challenged her in ways she'd never imagined. Working alongside LeBron, she found herself at the forefront of projects aimed at revolutionizing outdated systems, empowering underserved communities, and reimagining what it meant to lead with purpose. The transition wasn't easy. There were late nights, steep learning curves, and moments of self-doubt. But through it all, Clara thrived, driven by a newfound sense of purpose and the unwavering support of her mentor. As the weeks turned into months, Clara began to see the ripple effects of their work. Banks and businesses they'd once tested were adopting new policies, embracing a culture of empathy and inclusion. LeBron's vision was becoming a reality, and Clara was at the heart of it. One evening, as they wrapped up a meeting in their bustling headquarters, LeBron turned to Clara, a rare moment of quiet between them. You know, he said, when I walked into that bank, I wasn't sure what I'd find, but you reminded me why this work matters. Clara smiled, the weight of his words filling her with pride. And you reminded me that one person really can make a difference, she replied. LeBron chuckled. Together, we'll make more than a difference. We'll change the world. As they stepped out onto the balcony, the city lights stretching endlessly before them, Clara felt a sense of belonging she'd never known. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. A mixture of shock, envy, and disbelief rippled through the room. Clara thought of all the times she had doubted herself, moments when she felt her values didn't belong in a world obsessed with wealth and privilege. And yet, here she was, being recognized for the very qualities she had been told to suppress. She met LeBron's gaze and nodded firmly. Yes, she said. LeBron extended his hand, and as Clara shook it, she felt a surge of confidence she hadn't experienced before. This is just the beginning, LeBron said quietly. As he left the bank, the staff erupted into murmurs, their eyes darting toward Clara as if truly seeing her for the first time. But she didn't care. Her life was about to change in ways she couldn't have imagined. And for the first time, she felt ready to embrace it. Clara's last day at the bank came and went in a whirlwind. The morning after her dramatic departure, she arrived at the address LeBron had provided, a gleaming high-rise in the heart of downtown Los Angeles. The building radiated innovation, its sleek design a testament to LeBron's relentless pursuit of progress. As she stepped inside, a receptionist greeted her and ushered her into a private elevator. The ride-up was both exhilarating and nerve-wracking. When the doors opened, Clara found herself in a spacious, futuristic office. Walls of glass offered breathtaking views of the city, while the space buzzed with quiet efficiency. LeBron appeared moments later, dressed casually but exuding his usual confidence. "Welcome to your new office, Clara," he said, gesturing around the room. Clara's eyes widened as she took in the scene. It was a far cry from the rigid, traditional bank environment she had known. "This is incredible," she said, her voice tinged with awe. LeBron smiled. "You'll get used to it," he said, "but don't let the setting distract you. We have important work to do." LeBron wasted no time immersing Clara in her new role. Over the next few hours, he introduced her to his core team, a diverse group of individuals who shared his vision for transforming institutions. Each member brought a unique skill set to the table, from technology and finance to psychology and design. "You're here because you bring something we've been missing," LeBron explained during a private meeting. "Compassion, integrity, and the courage to challenge the status quo. Those qualities are rare in this industry, and we need them if we're going to succeed." Clara nodded, still trying to process the rapid pace of her new reality. "What exactly is my role here?" she asked. LeBron leaned back in his chair, his gaze thoughtful. "You're going to help us redesign how financial institutions operate," he said. "We want to create systems that prioritize people over profits, systems that treat everyone with dignity regardless of their net worth." Clara felt a surge of excitement mixed with apprehension. "That sounds ambitious," she admitted. It is," LeBron said with a grin. "But I didn't bring you here to do easy work." The days that followed were some of the most intense of Clara's life. She dove headfirst into projects aimed at overhauling traditional banking systems, learning everything from cutting-edge financial technology to the psychological impact of financial exclusion. LeBron's leadership style was both inspiring and demanding. He pushed Clara to think creatively, question assumptions, and embrace failure as a stepping stone to success. While the learning curve was steep, Clara found herself thriving in the environment. One evening, as they reviewed a presentation on inclusive banking models, Clara voiced a concern that had been nagging at her. "How do we convince institutions to adopt these changes?" she asked. "They're so entrenched in their ways." LeBron leaned forward, his expression serious. "We show them it works," he said. "If we can create a prototype, a bank that operates on these principles and succeeds, we'll force the rest of the industry to take notice." Clara nodded, the weight of the challenge settling on her shoulders. But for the first time, she felt like she was part of something truly meaningful. One afternoon, Clara joined LeBron on a visit to a struggling community bank in an underserved neighborhood. The contrast to her previous workplace was stark. The staff was overworked, the technology outdated, and the customers desperate for help. LeBron introduced Clara to the bank's manager, a weary but kind woman named Mrs. Garcia. "We're here to help," LeBron said, his tone reassuring. "Clara will be leading this project." Clara blinked, taken aback. "I will?" LeBron nodded. "You understand better than anyone what needs to change. You've seen the flaws in the system firsthand, and you have the vision to fix them." Mrs. Garcia smiled warmly. "We're grateful for any help you can provide," and she said, "The people in this community need it." Clara took a deep breath, feeling the enormity of the responsibility. But she also felt something else, a quiet determination. "I won't let you down," she said, meeting LeBron's gaze. "I know you won't," LeBron replied, his confidence in her unwavering. Over the next few weeks, Clara worked tirelessly to implement LeBron James's vision at the community bank. She introduced streamlined processes, digital tools to simplify transactions, and training programs to empower the staff. But her most significant contribution was fostering a culture of respect and empathy, ensuring that every customer felt valued. By the time the project was complete, the transformation was undeniable. The community bank had become a beacon of hope, attracting praise from industry leaders and the media alike. Clara, once a nervous trainee at a rigid institution, had grown into a confident leader who understood the power of compassion in finance. LeBron watched her progress with quiet pride. "I told you this wouldn't be easy," he said one evening as they reviewed the project's success. Clara smiled. "It wasn't," she admitted, "but it was worth it." LeBron nodded. "This is just the beginning." As Clara left the office that night, she couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. The man in ragged clothes who had walked into her bank weeks ago had changed her life in ways she never could have imagined. Now she was determined to pay it forward. The journey was far from over, but Clara knew she was exactly where she was meant to be, standing on the front lines of a revolution that would change the world. Clara's success with the community bank brought her recognition within LeBron's organization and beyond. News of the transformation spread quickly, with articles highlighting the innovative systems and inclusive practices she had implemented. Yet Clara remained grounded, determined not to let the attention distract her from the larger mission. "We're not just changing one bank," LeBron reminded her during a strategy meeting. "We're creating a model, a blueprint for how financial institutions can truly serve everyone." Their next step was ambitious, partnering with multiple small banks across the country to replicate the success of the first transformation. Clara was placed at the helm of the initiative, her confidence growing with each challenge. But as the scope of the project expanded, so did the resistance. Not everyone welcomed the changes. Larger banks and financial institutions, threatened by the shift in public perception, began pushing back. Representatives from these institutions dismissed LeBron's initiative as idealistic and unsustainable. Clara found herself in meetings where her ideas were met with skepticism and outright hostility. During one particularly heated discussion, a prominent banking executive scoffed, "This isn't how the industry works. You can't just rewrite the rules." That evening, Clara vented her frustrations to LeBron. "They don't want to change," she said. "They're too comfortable with the way things are." LeBron leaned back in his chair, his gaze steady. "Of course they don't," he said. "People resist change when it threatens their power. That's why we need to prove them wrong." His words reignited Clara's resolve. She realized that the resistance wasn't a sign of failure. It was proof that they were making an impact. As Clara and her team moved forward, they began incorporating technology to make banking more accessible. LeBron introduced her to developers and engineers who specialized in artificial intelligence and blockchain, explaining how these tools could revolutionize financial services. They explored innovations like mobile banking apps for rural areas, digital platforms integrated with financial literacy programs, and blockchain solutions for secure, low-cost transactions. One evening, as Clara worked late in the office, LeBron stopped by her desk. "How do you feel about this project?" he asked. Clara looked up, her expression thoughtful. "It's exciting, but it's also overwhelming," she admitted. "There's so much to learn, and the stakes feel so high." LeBron smiled. "That's how you know it's worth doing," he said. "The most important work always feels impossible at first." Clara nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. She dove deeper into the technical aspects of the initiative, eager to understand how these innovations could empower underserved communities. The work was challenging, but it was also deeply rewarding. With every step, Clara felt herself growing, not just as a professional, but as a person. Amid the whirlwind of work, Clara began reflecting on her own journey. She thought back to her days as a trainee at the bank, when she had felt powerless to challenge the status quo. Meeting LeBron had been a turning point, but she realized that the qualities he valued in her, compassion, integrity, and courage, had been there all along. She had simply needed the right opportunity to let them shine. Now, as Clara stood at the forefront of a movement to reshape the financial industry, she understood the truth behind LeBron's vision. Real change starts with people, and with each passing day, Clara became more certain that she was exactly where she was meant to be. LeBron James handed Clara her cup of tea, his expression thoughtful yet kind. "Clara," he said, "I understand the pressure you're feeling. You're leading important work that's changing lives. But here's the thing, you can't give your best to the world if you're running on empty." Clara looked down at her tea, her mind racing. "It's hard," she admitted. "There's always more to do, and I don't want to let anyone down." LeBron leaned back in his chair, his voice steady but firm. "I've been where you are. I've pushed myself to the limit, thinking that if I just worked harder, I could fix everything. But that's not sustainable. Leadership isn't just about results, it's about endurance. You can't carry this mission alone." His words hit Clara harder than she expected. She realized that in her drive to prove herself, she had been neglecting her own well-being. "I guess I've been so focused on the work that I forgot to focus on myself," she said softly. LeBron nodded. "It's easy to lose sight of that when you're passionate about what you do. But if you burn out, who's going to carry this vision forward? Taking care of yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary." For the first time in weeks, Clara allowed herself to exhale deeply. "I'll try," she said, though the words felt like a promise to herself as much as to him. LeBron smiled. "That's all I ask, and remember, you're not in this alone. Lean on your team. Trust them to share the load." Clara left the meeting feeling lighter, but she knew that making changes wouldn't be easy. Over the following weeks, she started small, delegating more tasks to her team, scheduling time to rest, and even picking up her old habit of running in the mornings. At first, it felt strange, almost indulgent, but as the days went by, she noticed a difference. She felt sharper, more focused, and better equipped to tackle the challenges ahead. Her renewed energy didn't go unnoticed. Her team began to mirror her balance, taking more initiative and finding creative solutions to problems. Clara saw firsthand the power of a cohesive team, united not just by a shared goal, but by mutual respect and trust. One day, Clara sat down to write a personal statement for an upcoming financial industry conference. As her pen moved across the paper, she found herself pouring out thoughts she had never fully articulated. Finance isn't just about numbers, it's about people. Every decision we make has the power to lift someone up or shut them out. I've seen firsthand how institutions can fail the very people they're meant to serve, but I've also seen how a single act of kindness can change everything. That's why I do this work, because everyone deserves a chance, no matter where they start. The statement resonated deeply with Clara. When the day of the conference arrived, she stood backstage, her heart pounding as she prepared to address a room full of industry leaders. LeBron had encouraged her to speak, insisting that her story was exactly what the audience needed to hear. When her name was announced, Clara stepped onto the stage, the bright lights momentarily blinding her. She took a deep breath, her nerves steadying as she began to speak. She shared her journey from helping a man in ragged clothes to leading transformative projects that were reshaping the financial industry. She spoke about the importance of empathy in finance and the need to create systems that served everyone, not just the privileged few. The room was silent as she finished, her words hanging in the air. Then, one by one, the audience began to applaud. The sound grew louder, filling the hall with a wave of appreciation and respect. After the conference, Clara was approached by executives, entrepreneurs, and advocates who wanted to collaborate on her initiatives. The tide was beginning to turn, and Clara's vision was gaining momentum. That night, LeBron congratulated her on her success. "You've done something incredible," he said. Clara smiled. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied. LeBron shook his head. "You could have," he said. "You just needed someone to see it in you first." As Clara reflected on his words, she realized how far she had come, not just as a professional, but as a person. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. With her confidence renewed and her purpose clear, Clara was ready to continue leading the charge for a more compassionate and inclusive financial future. LeBron James smiled knowingly. "You're not letting anyone down by taking a moment to breathe," he said. "Leadership isn't just about action, it's about sustainability. If you burn out, you can't help anyone." His words stayed with Clara. She began setting boundaries, delegating tasks more effectively, and carving out time for herself. To her surprise, these changes didn't weaken her leadership. They strengthened it. By prioritizing her own well-being, she was able to show up stronger for her team and her mission. As the year progressed, LeBron unveiled an ambitious new initiative, the creation of Equity First Bank, a model institution embodying the principles Clara and her team had championed: accessibility, transparency, and human connection. The project would serve as a living prototype for inclusive, innovative banking practices. Clara was tasked with overseeing the project. The role thrilled her, but it also terrified her. The stakes were higher than ever, and the pressure to succeed felt immense. In a private meeting with LeBron, she voiced her concerns. "What if we fail?" she asked, her voice betraying her anxiety. LeBron leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "Failure is always a possibility," he said. "But so is success. The question isn't whether we'll encounter obstacles, it's how we'll overcome them. And I believe in your ability to do just that." With his encouragement, Clara threw herself into the project. She assembled a diverse team of experts and worked tirelessly to bring the vision to life, from the architecture of the building to the technology powering daily operations. Every detail reflected the values of Equity First Bank. Training programs emphasize respect and empathy, ensuring every staff member embodied the bank's mission. When Equity First Bank finally opened its doors, the response was overwhelming. Customers from all walks of life flocked to the institution, drawn by its commitment to treating every individual with dignity and respect. The atmosphere inside the bank was unlike any other, welcoming, efficient, and inclusive. On opening day, Clara stood in the lobby, watching customers interact with the staff and explore the new space. It was a surreal moment, the culmination of months of hard work and unwavering belief in a better way forward. LeBron joined her, his expression one of quiet pride. "What do you think?" he asked. Clara smiled, her eyes shining with emotion. "It's everything we dreamed of," she said. He nodded. "And it's only the beginning." The success of Equity First Bank sent shockwaves through the financial industry. Articles lauded it as a groundbreaking achievement, and Clara became a regular feature in industry journals. Executives from other banks reached out, seeking guidance on how to implement similar changes. What had once seemed like an impossible dream was now a tangible reality, proving that ethical banking wasn't just an ideal, it was a viable business model. But Clara knew this was only the beginning. The challenge now was to scale the model to reach more communities without losing its core values. In a strategy meeting with Clara and the leadership team, LeBron laid out their next steps. "We've proven the concept," he said, his voice calm but resolute. "Now we need to expand, but we won't compromise the principles that made this work." Clara nodded, understanding the gravity of the task. Expansion wouldn't just mean opening new branches. It would require training teams, adapting to regional needs, and ensuring that every customer experienced the same respect and care that had become Equity First Bank's hallmark. Clara threw herself into the expansion plans, starting by assembling a team of regional leaders who shared her vision. She sought individuals with diverse backgrounds, people who understood the unique challenges faced by their communities. One such recruit was Marcus, a former community organizer who had spent years advocating for underserved neighborhoods. Clara was struck by his passion and deep understanding of systemic barriers. During his interview, Marcus spoke about the need for financial literacy programs and how they could empower entire communities. "We can't just provide services," Marcus said. "We need to provide knowledge. People need to understand how to make the system work for them." Clara smiled, impressed. "That's exactly the kind of thinking we need," she said. Marcus joined the team, and his insights proved invaluable. Together, Clara and her regional leaders developed tailored strategies for each community they served, ensuring that Equity First Bank's mission remained authentic and impactful. The expansion wasn't without challenges. Larger banks continued to push back, dismissing Equity First Bank's success as a novelty. But Clara's resolve only strengthened. With LeBron's guidance and the support of her growing team, she pushed forward, determined to prove that ethical banking wasn't just sustainable, it was the future. Late one evening, as Clara worked on plans for a new branch, LeBron stopped by her desk. "You're doing incredible work," he said, "but don't forget to celebrate the wins along the way." Clara smiled, feeling a surge of gratitude. "I will," she promised. As LeBron left, Clara sat back and reflected on how far she had come. The man in ragged clothes who had walked into her life months ago had set her on a path she never could have imagined. Now she was determined to use her platform to make a difference, not just for herself, but for everyone. And as she looked toward the future, Clara felt certain of one thing: this was only the beginning. "You don't just need systems," Marcus had said during his interview. "You need trust. If people don't believe you're here for them, nothing else matters." Clara knew he was right. Trust was the foundation of everything she and LeBron James were building. She brought Marcus on board, along with others who shared his insight and dedication. Together, they began laying the groundwork for Equity First Bank's next phase. Predictably, the expansion faced resistance. Established banks launched aggressive campaigns to undermine Clara's efforts, dismissing Equity First Bank as an unsustainable experiment. One prominent financial analyst appeared on television, calling the bank naive and doomed to fail. Clara felt a pang of frustration, but quickly reminded herself of LeBron's philosophy: resistance is a sign of progress. "They wouldn't fight us if they didn't feel threatened," LeBron told her one evening after a particularly scathing article. "It means we're doing something right." Despite his encouragement, the pressure was immense. Clara often worked late into the night, poring over reports and strategizing ways to address the mounting challenges. The stakes were high, but Clara's sense of purpose carried her through. The breakthrough came with the launch of a new initiative: mobile banking units designed to serve remote and rural communities. The sleek, solar-powered vans were equipped with cutting-edge technology, allowing customers to open accounts, apply for loans, and access financial education resources on the spot. The response was overwhelming. In one small town, an elderly farmer teared up as he thanked Clara's team. "No one's ever brought a bank to us before," he said. You're giving us a chance to catch up with the rest of the world." Stories like these reaffirm Clara's commitment to the mission. The mobile units quickly became a symbol of Equity First Bank's dedication to accessibility and innovation, further solidifying its reputation as a force for change in the financial industry. As Equity First Bank expanded, Clara's influence grew. She was invited to speak at international conferences, where she shared her vision for a financial industry rooted in compassion and equity. Her talks were met with standing ovations, and other organizations began adopting elements of her approach. Clara remained humble, often deflecting praise toward her team. "None of this would be possible without the people who believed in this vision," she said during one interview. "It's not about me, it's about creating a system that works for everyone." Her humility only endeared her further to those around her. LeBron, ever the mentor, watched her rise with quiet pride. "You've become a leader," he told her during a rare moment of downtime. "And the best kind, the kind people want to follow, not because they have to, but because they believe in you." The expansion wasn't without its setbacks. In one region, a new branch faced delays due to local bureaucracy. Clara flew out personally to address the issue, spending days navigating red tape and building relationships with skeptical officials. "It's frustrating," she admitted to Marcus during a late-night phone call, "but we can't let obstacles stop us." By the end of the week, Clara had secured the necessary approvals. Though the experience left her drained, LeBron's words about sustainability echoed in her mind, reminding her to pace herself for the long road ahead. With Equity First Bank's success spreading across the nation, Clara began to look beyond domestic borders. Inspired by LeBron's encouragement to think big, she envisioned a global expansion that would bring accessible, equitable banking to underserved populations worldwide. "We've proven this works," LeBron said during a strategy session. "Now let's take it to the next level. The world needs leaders who aren't afraid to challenge the status quo, and you've already proven you can do that." Clara took his words to heart. She began exploring partnerships with international organizations, NGOs, and tech companies to extend their reach. She dreamed of initiatives that would bring mobile banking to remote villages, financial literacy programs to schools, and advanced digital tools to empower underserved communities globally. One evening, as Clara stood in the lobby of a newly opened branch, she watched customers interact with staff who treated them with genuine respect. The atmosphere was vibrant, filled with the hum of activity and the warmth of human connection. LeBron joined her, his expression a mix of pride and satisfaction. "This is what it's all about," he said, gesturing to the scene before them. Clara smiled, her heart swelling with emotion. "It's everything we dreamed of," she said softly. "And this is only the beginning," LeBron replied. The success of Equity First Bank rippled through the financial world like a seismic wave. Articles celebrated it as a groundbreaking achievement, and interviews with Clara became a staple in industry journals. Yet for Clara, the journey was far from over. Scaling the model to new regions and adapting to global challenges would demand even more innovation, collaboration, and resilience. But Clara felt ready. Her experiences had taught her that leadership wasn't about having all the answers. It was about having the courage to seek them. As Clara stood on the threshold of the next chapter, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From the day she had met LeBron in the lobby of a rigid, traditional bank to this moment, her life had transformed in ways she never could have imagined. Now she was determined to use her platform to empower others and redefine what it meant to truly serve. And as the lights of the city shimmered in the distance, Clara knew one thing for certain. The revolution they had started wasn't just a dream, it was a movement, and it was just getting started. "Banking isn't just about money," Clara said during a meeting with our team. "It's about creating hope, and hope isn't limited by borders." LeBron James nodded in agreement. "The challenge will be adapting our model to different cultures, economies, and regulations," he said. "But that's what makes this worth doing. If we succeed, we can change the global financial system forever." Clara and her team began identifying regions with the most significant need for financial inclusion. Rural areas in sub-Saharan Africa, urban slums in Southeast Asia, and underserved indigenous communities in South America all became key focus points. The scale of the task was daunting, but Clara's determination, born from her earlier successes, pushed her forward. Her first international project took her to Kenya, where a lack of traditional banking infrastructure had left millions reliant on informal financial systems. Partnering with local leaders and fintech innovators, Clara launched a pilot program that combined mobile banking with in-person support centers. One afternoon, while visiting a remote village, Clara met Aisha, a woman running a small but thriving agricultural business. Aisha had never had access to formal banking, but had managed to grow her enterprise through sheer determination. "You've given me a way to dream bigger," Aisha told Clara after opening her first account. "Now I can plan for my children's future." Hearing stories like Aisha's reaffirmed Clara's belief in the transformative power of accessible banking. The success of the Kenyan pilot program paved the way for similar initiatives in other regions. While the global expansion was promising, it wasn't without hurdles. In some areas, local governments were resistant, fearing foreign influence or disruption of existing systems. Clara quickly learned the importance of building trust and fostering collaboration with regional stakeholders. During a tense negotiation with officials in Southeast Asia, Clara emphasized the program's focus on empowerment rather than competition. "We're not here to replace your systems," she explained. "We're here to enhance them, to create opportunities where none currently exist." Her sincerity and collaborative approach won them over, and the project moved forward. LeBron, who had been monitoring her progress, praised her diplomacy. "You're not just building banks, Clara," he said, "you're building bridges." As Equity First Bank's international branches flourished, Clara found herself at the center of a growing movement. Activists, economists, and policymakers began rallying around her vision, advocating for systemic changes in global finance. At an international summit on financial inclusion, Clara delivered a keynote address that captivated the audience. She shared stories of people like Aisha in Kenya and others who had used their newfound access to banking to transform their lives. "We have the tools to make finance a force for good," Clara said. "But it starts with a choice to prioritize people over profits, to build systems that include rather than exclude." Her speech received a standing ovation. Afterwards, several world leaders approached her with offers of support, pledging to collaborate on expanding financial inclusion efforts. Despite her growing influence, Clara remained humble. One evening, as she walked through the bustling streets of Nairobi, she reflected on how far she had come. She thought back to her days as a trainee at the bank, when she had felt powerless to challenge the system. It was LeBron's experiment, the man in ragged clothes, that had changed everything. His willingness to test the system had revealed her own capacity for courage and compassion. Now she was using those same qualities to transform lives around the world. Later that night, Clara called LeBron to share her thoughts. "You saw something in me I didn't even see in myself," she said. "I didn't make you who you are," LeBron replied. "I just gave you the opportunity to show it. The rest was all you." As Equity First Bank continued to expand, Clara turned her focus to mentoring the next generation of leaders. She believed deeply in the importance of passing on the lessons she had learned and empowering others to carry the mission forward. During a training session with new recruits, Clara shared a piece of advice that had guided her from the beginning. "Never underestimate the power of a single act of kindness," she said. "It might seem small, but it can change everything, for you and for the world." Her words resonated deeply with the group, inspiring them to see their roles as more than just jobs, but as opportunities to make a difference. Clara's vision for Equity First Bank continued to grow. She dreamed of creating financial literacy programs for schools, forming partnerships with tech companies to develop new tools, and launching global initiatives to bring banking to underserved populations in every corner of the world. LeBron encouraged her to think even bigger. "You've already proven what's possible," he said during one of their strategy meetings. "Now it's time to redefine what's impossible." Fueled by his belief in her, Clara began laying the groundwork for a truly global network of financial inclusion. She envisioned a world where no one was excluded from opportunity, where access to banking, education, and support was a universal right, not a privilege. One evening, as Clara stood in the lobby of a newly opened branch in a remote corner of South America, she watched customers interact with staff who treated them with genuine respect. The warmth and connection in the room were palpable. LeBron joined her, his presence as steady and reassuring as ever. "This is what it's all about," he said, gesturing to the bustling scene around them. Clara smiled, her heart full. "It's everything we dreamed of," she said softly. "And it's only the beginning," LeBron replied. As Clara looked toward the future, she felt a profound sense of purpose. What had started as an experiment, a single act of courage, had become a global movement. And though the road ahead would undoubtedly be filled with challenges, she knew one thing for certain. Together, they were building a world where everyone had the chance to thrive. Clara returned to the park bench where her journey had begun. The memory of LeBron James, disguised in ragged clothes and clutching a crumpled $20 bill, felt both distant and vivid. She sat down, letting the quiet of the evening surround her, the hum of the city blending with her thoughts. She reflected on how far she had come, from a nervous trainee unsure of her place in the world to a leader at the forefront of a global movement. The weight of the journey was immense, but so was the fulfillment. What had started as a single act of kindness had grown into something far greater than she had ever imagined. By the end of the year, Equity First Bank had expanded to over 20 countries, each branch and program tailored to the unique needs of its community. The institution had evolved into a global force for financial inclusion, proving that banking could be a tool for empowerment, not just profit. Each branch wasn't just a place to deposit money, it was a hub of opportunity. Customers could access financial literacy programs, career resources, and tools to build better futures. The institution's impact extended beyond banking, empowering communities and rewriting the narrative of what finance could achieve. Clara's role evolved as well. While she remained involved in the organization's strategy, she transitioned into mentorship and advocacy, focusing on nurturing the next generation of leaders. She worked closely with her mentees, instilling in them the values that had guided Equity First Bank to success: compassion, integrity, and the courage to challenge the status quo. One of her mentees, a young woman named Amara, reminded Clara of herself in her early days, idealistic, determined, and brimming with potential. During their last mentoring session, Clara gave Amara the same advice LeBron had given her years ago. "Don't be afraid to challenge the system," Clara said. "The hardest battles are often the most important ones. And remember, it's not about perfection, it's about progress." Amara nodded, her eyes shining with determination. "I won't let you down," she said. Clara smiled. "You won't. I believe in you." Years later, Clara stood on the stage of a packed auditorium at a global conference on financial innovation. Industry leaders, activists, and policymakers from every corner of the world had gathered to celebrate the impact of Equity First Bank. LeBron sat in the front row, his smile warm and filled with pride as Clara stepped up to the podium. She took a deep breath, the magnitude of the moment washing over her. "When this journey began," she said, her voice steady, "I was just a trainee in a bank, unsure of my place in the world. I never imagined that one small act of kindness would set me on a path to change my life and the lives of so many others." She paused, letting her words sink in. "What we've built isn't just a bank, it's a movement. It's proof that finance can be a force for good, that we can create systems that uplift rather than exclude." Clara's voice grew stronger as she continued. "But this movement isn't about one person or one organization. It's about all of us, the choices we make, the values we uphold, and the future we want to create. Together, we've shown that change is possible. And together, we'll keep pushing for a world where opportunity is truly for everyone." The audience erupted into applause, a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. LeBron stood as well, clapping with genuine pride. Later that evening, backstage, the two shared a quiet moment. "You've created something extraordinary," LeBron said, his voice filled with admiration. Clara smiled. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied. LeBron shook his head. "I gave you an opportunity, but you turned it into something far greater than I ever imagined. That's your legacy, Clara." Clara looked thoughtful. "It's not just mine," she said. "It belongs to everyone who believed in the vision, who worked to make it real." LeBron nodded, his expression softening. "And it will live on long after we're gone." As the evening darkened around the park bench, Clara thought about the legacy they had built together. Equity First Bank was no longer just an institution, It was a testament to what could happen when people chose to lead with empathy and courage. Its influence had spread far beyond what she or LeBron had ever imagined. She pulled out her notebook, jotting down a thought that had been forming in her mind all evening. One act of kindness can ripple outward, touching lives in ways we may never see. But when kindness is woven into the fabric of a system, it becomes a force for transformation, a revolution. Closing the notebook, Clara stood and took one last look at the bench before walking away. The journey wasn't over. There were still battles to fight, communities to uplift, and systems to challenge. But Clara knew that no matter where the road took her next, the values that had brought her this far would guide her every step of the way. And in the distance, the city lights shimmered, symbols of a world slowly but surely becoming brighter.